Well, good morning, everybody. Whoa, whoa. Happy Thursday, July 16th, to everybody listening. Hopefully, you're having a fantastic start to your morning. I absolutely am. If you didn't see my post on my socials, this is the first edition of Outside the Box Unfiltered. Ben stayed out celebrating a bit too much yesterday, and we're going to get through it together. Conan O'Brien said you shouldn't announce those kind of things to start a show because it lowers the expectations of the audience. But you guys know me. I would rather be upfront with you guys. And let's just say there was a lot to celebrate. It's a celebration, bitches. Um, I was at the Appleton Town Hall. We'll be talking about that at 9:30. I have some guests coming in that are much more qualified to talk about what took place than I could ever hope to be. So we'll have them on the program to jump into it with all of you. How are you all doing this fine Tuesday morning? Thursday morning. Sorry to put that evil on you. The fact that I know what day it is at all is kind of remarkable. Um, we got a lot to get into here over the course of the next 2 hours. As I mentioned, we're going to be joined by not one but two anti-flock advocates, one of which, Carrie, has already been on the program, and another one, Tanner. I have met at a couple of these ALPR hearings around the Fox Valley lately. Both of them are going to be on the program talking about what the decision that was made yesterday means and why the fight is nowhere near complete. So there will be another opportunity to get out there next Wednesday. I'm going to be there again. By the way, congratulations to everybody that showed up. There were a lot of outside the boxers. There were a lot of people affiliated with Sister Jones. There were a lot of people affiliated with the anti-flock movement around the Fox Valley. It's absolutely fantastic to see all these little independent groups who are just interested in community and trying to improve um, their standard of living in the community that either raised them or, in my case, inherited them over the course of however many years. It was just absolutely awesome, and there's so many people that I've gotten to know over the months. Um, that I've never met in person. You know what I mean? OG Michelle, there she is. I'm cautiously optimistic. She's been listening to Outside the Box since September of 2022. We've never met in person. We've talked all the time. We have never met in person, and we got a chance to finally meet. I wish I could have talked longer, but it's a shit show. Those kind of things are a shit show. It's the proverbial who's who of people that really don't like government overreach, and you're just pulled in a billion different directions. Found myself at Cleo's after the fact, and I don't know that I've ever been at Cleo's like not when the sun is up. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to Cleo's on a Wednesday. How bad could it be? There were so many people there. And like obviously like we rolled in 20 something people deep, so that only is going to make the crowd even larger, but it was already super crowded. It was already super crowded when we got there. And I was like, yeah, well, all right. We're doing this on a Wednesday. It's not like I ain't got no job. I can do what I want. No, I didn't. A lot of the people I was with did the dirty snowball. I just went for the jazz cabbage drinks. I can't say the word because TikTok's a mother hubbard, but I just went with the jazz cabbage drinks as to not be hungover. I really don't like drinking on weeknights if I can avoid it. Not to say I won't do it, but like it has to. I really have to be in the mood because I'm pushing 40, you know. And like you throw a couple back, like it doesn't even have to really be that much. I'm like, I drank 2 glasses of wine last night. Why do I feel like this? Like, and that's not how I want to be doing a show. Not yet. Not until I get the fancier studio. Like, can you guys hear this if I turn my AC on? Is there like a constant droning in the background? There probably is. So like I can't do the show the way that way. That's Bush League. So no AC when I'm doing the show, and that's not the way you want to do a hungover show. This isn't the way. Um so I stayed away from the dirty snowball this time. This time. Oh, Jaro says she can't hear the AC. Rosie says, 40, those were the days. Yeah, all right. I'm telling you. I remember being like 26 and being like, oh, I can't drink like I used to. It's like, no, I'm fine at 26. Now it's like, oh, God. Ugh. Um, yeah, Carla says her old ass went home. Yeah, we're not surprised, Carla. She had to go do public speaking, I'm sure. But we'll get into what actually happened at the town hall at 9:30 because we'll just kind of rehash the entire thing there. But a lot of good things. I don't want to bury the lead. A lot of good things happened last night. We will get into that in 25 minutes. I actually want to start off the conversation today on the state level. Um, TR on TikTok says, I feel like I want an old fashioned the way it smells outside. I will say, you guys, so Pittsburgh has terrible air quality. And so when I moved out here, I always said, you when I breathe, my friends would mock me. I'd say, when I breathe, the air is fresher. And they were like, Ben, stop being dramatic. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, the air is better here. I grew up in an area where, like right now, when you look at the map of the breathable quality of the air that they put up on all the meteorologists' social media pages, if you saw a nationwide one, there isn't even a wildfire affecting Pittsburgh, and it's still the same color as what's going on in Wisconsin when there's a wildfire, and it's just like how they exist. So when I moved out here, the air was much better. And if you remember correctly, last year during Mile of Music, there was a wildfire and it was a bit smoky. And I remember I was out with people at the shitty little radio station I used to work at, and um they were all complaining about the air quality, and I was like, guys, I don't even notice it. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not trying to be tough, I'm just letting you know, like, this doesn't even feel like anything to me. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, this one's noticeable. I noticed it yesterday when I walked out of my apartment after the show wrapped up to go and take care of some errands. It absolutely crushed me. I haven't been outside yet today, but I have a business appointment with a sponsor tomorrow or later on today for some lunch, and I have a feeling I'm going to feel it again. It's atrocious. If you can stay inside for the next couple of days, I realize very few people are fortunate enough to work from home or be able to avoid doing so, but I would highly recommend it because you don't need me to tell you. It's kind of like how they say meteorologist jobs is stick your head out the window and look at the sky because that's basically, how we figure out the weather. Um, this is one of those kind of days. Just step outside and oh, I shouldn't be breathing this. Um, Aaron says a full weekend inside the house with family sounds scary. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's because I live far from home. I don't mind that idea at this point, but I get it. I get it. Stevie says it's like breathing a bonfire. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Drinking after band practice is a fine tradition, says KG. Phil and Oshkosh says pushing 65 and drink every night. Well, see, that's the thing. I don't even have booze in my apartment. Like, it's not like I'm a heavy, heavy drinker. That's never been my MO. I do things the way I do things, but I'm a social drinker. If I am out and about, I'm like, oh, don't mind if I do. And then the wheels come off very quickly. But you'll never see me like, oh, I'm sitting at home ruminating with a glass of whiskey. And laid off Ben is a fairly sober dude. So like when I throw down now, I throw down hard because I don't really partake. I just stay focused on the mission right now. Just need to get all this off the ground. It's very hard for me to do anything I perceive as fun, to be honest with you. Evil Dead's been out for 6 days. I haven't even seen it because I'm not in the mindset to watch something that I'm really excited for and I don't want to ruin it. So I'm like waiting, but I don't want to miss it in theaters either. There's a lot of things going on there that I'm trying to work through, but I will eventually see that movie. And Off Topic will come back. The movie podcast will come back. I need to get one thing at a time, but we will be doing movies on whatever I end up calling this media empire in the near future. Now, let's get into the news of the day. Statewide, that is. If you guys haven't seen, the numbers have come out in terms of campaign financing, donations to all of the different candidates in Wisconsin that are still in the race that are running for governor. Um, and it highlights something that I think is worth jumping into. Case in point, the Democratic governor, this is as per Matt Smith of WISN 12 News in Milwaukee. Um, Mandela Barnes is that this is just cash on hand. I could give you the other, like the actual numbers, but like who cares because most of that money is already accounted for. But like the numbers of actual raised money, just for some perspective, it goes in this order: Barnes, Hong, Brennan, Rodriguez, Royce. Um, 841,000, 708,000, 665, 561, 527. Now, in terms of cash on hand, which is the actual number that matters. This is the number that they have to spend between now and realistically November, but let's be real, for four of these candidates, there is no tomorrow. So you're going to be putting a lot of these funds into the primary, into probably attacking Democrats rather than focusing on Tiny Tom Tiffany. That in the same order: Barnes, Hong, Brennan, Rodriguez, Royce. 204, 410, 359, 34,000. You can guess who that is. And 406. So all around a $500,000 outside of Barnes and Rodriguez, who are at 200,000 and 34,000 respectively, but they're all roughly dealing with the same number of money. Here's why I wanted to bring this out. Tom Tiffany raised $8.7 million. It includes $6.1 million well, we'll get there. He's got about $2 million cash on hand, actually closer to $3 million, 2.998 million cash on hand right now at the end of this reporting period. Now, Aaron's asking if I've seen the commercial where Tom Tiffany is calling Democrats commies. Not only have I seen them get called commies, but now there's an ad buy out there where it's calling Francesca Hong liberal Francesca Hong, and I'm just like, LOL. But so Stevie asks, how much from the lobby? I'm assuming that's the A lobby. And I don't have the numbers on that, but it's actually even more interesting than that. Tom Tiffany's money, again, just to be clear, $8 million roughly, with 3 million cash on hand. 6 million of that came from the national GOP, which fine. That's the way it's supposed to work. The National Party is supposed to throw in behind, the candidate of their choosing. Cool. I'm not knocking that part of it. The bulk of the 2 million remaining dollars that were raised came from three people. So in other words, the national GOP and three people are responsible for more than $9 and $10 going into the Tiffany campaign. Now, don't get me wrong, money spends the same no matter where its source is from. Trust me, much to my chagrin, that's the unfortunate way that it works. But that spells a larger problem for the GOP than I think they're willing to admit. There is no grassroots momentum behind this campaign right now. But when you add up all of the cash on hand between all five Democrats, they do not have as much money as Tom Tiffany does on hand right now, and we are less than 30 days away from the primary being over, and it's being time to go into attack mode there. And I have the worst kind of feeling. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I have the worst kind of feeling that if Hong comes out, the DNC is going to work overtime to find a way to not throw national dollars into the race. I hope I'm wrong. Because what you're seeing right now, and a couple of you actually sent me the videos, but I was intending to get into this anyway. The RGA, the Republican Governors Association, put a $2 million ad buy essentially into amplifying Hong. Now, before I go any further, just a little bit of my own opinion on the matter. That's one of the dumbest strategies I've ever seen a political party do. I still maintain that Francesca Hong is the strongest candidate in this race right now. And the idea that the Republican Party is looking forward to facing her, which does seem to be true, assuming what the other Democratic candidates are saying is accurate. I think that's an incredibly foolish strategy. I have seen Republicans say they'd be willing to vote for. Dan Schaefer of the recombobulation area, he's a good friend of mine, did a ranked choice voting experiment to see how the governor's race would shake out if we had ranked choice voting in Wisconsin. And over 2,000 people took part in the experiment, and it didn't even have to go to the second round. Francesca Hong got 60% of the vote, and they moved on. And what's funny is everybody immediately started downplaying the results of that fake election the second they came out, because I don't think people were anticipating. I think the goal was to show that the liberal candidates were all cannibalizing one another. And then when it showed, yeah, to a certain extent, but also she's most people's first choice, then um like more than half. She's already a majority of the people's first choice. Now, it isn't scientific. And I will say, I looked at some of the metrics. It's a fairly white population, which I don't know how black people, Muslims, people, realistically, all minority status. I have no idea how they'd ultimately end up voting. So far be it for me to speculate. No group is a monolith, but that doesn't change the fact that it was an absolute beatdown in that. And the idea that the Republican Party would be looking forward to that to make this a defund the police campaign at a time when no one can afford anything, I think is foolish political strategy. If it works, let's just say I'll be very disappointed in society, but I don't think that it's going to work. But as I said to a couple of you via messages, it seems like the marching orders did come out, because I saw both Sarah Rodriguez as well as Mandela Barnes talking about the Republican Party throwing their weight behind Hong in a way to weaken the Democrats. Now, I don't buy into that sentiment. Maybe you guys do. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to take comments, at least on YouTube. I can take them from TikTok, anybody who wants to weigh in on the Wisconsin race here. But because I have guests at 9:30 and I haven't figured out how to like keep the links consistent yet, so I can't offer you guys an opportunity to weigh in with your voice, but you obviously can type it in, and I'll try and keep an eye on things there. But so the numbers are staggering. And the idea that three people are essentially, and to be fair, like, I believe the number I saw was about 10,000 individuals have contributed to Tom Tiffany's campaign. But just for some perspective, Francesca Hong's campaign had more individual donators in January, let alone the rest of the year. And Tom Tiffany's campaign has 10,000 people that have donated to it. But $9 and $10 are coming from three wealthy individuals. Diane Hendricks is one of them. That's the only name that I have seen on the list. And then the Republican like the national GOP, which again, that's fine. But when we talk about money in politics, this is what we're talking about. Elon Musk is currently, Kristen's guessing Uline. You're probably right about that as well. But Elon Musk has run afoul of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And if you guys haven't seen, 5 of 6 people on the Elections Commission voted to investigate Elon Musk, and 2 of the people that voted that way are Republican. So, like, in this America, that says to me that Elon Musk effed up. It says to me that he made a mistake, and that people might actually be. I still don't think it's going to be anything other than a slap on the wrist. I have no faith in our system to actually penalize anybody in that level of stratosphere, especially the first trillionaire in America. I see Elf saying, will anything really happen, though? Probably not. He'll probably get fined like $3 million, which he'll pull out of his couch cushion, and then he's going to move on with his life. If I had to guess, that's probably the way that it's going to go. And I don't want to sit here and pretend that billionaires weren't funneling money into this state on the Democratic side before I moved out here. They were. And Democrats were more than happy to take the money, because those were the good billionaires. We have the good billionaires on our side. It's those Ulines and Hendricks that we can't trust. And That is a problem. And now the shoe's on the other foot, and the billionaire money is trending much more toward the Republican side than the Democratic side. Um, and so I say all of that to say Montana and Hawaii have both done statewide Citizens United movements at this point, and assuming a Democratic trifecta, I don't know if they can get it, but that should be one of, much like how I said AI needs to be on the forefront of other people's minds, getting this to not be the norm has to be the way, because you're going to be inundated with Tiffany ads, and not because the people of Wisconsin believe in him, but you know what? You guys all know that because you listen to this show, you engage in politics every single day. You know who's not going to do that? The people who are watching OTAs right now and won't even know that there's a primary. And then come October 15th, when they're watching football, they're going to be like, man, this Tiffany guy's everywhere. And the Tiffany guy's everywhere because three people decided to bolster his campaign. Now, billionaires might throw in to the Democratic candidate. Again, if it's Hong, maybe not, because I've noticed a pretty stringent effort to kneecap any kind of progressive movement, regardless of what state is taking place. But billionaires might throw in, especially if it's a different candidate. And we have to condemn that as well. But also, right now, as it stands, there are five Democratic candidates that, by and large, are existing because people believe in them versus corporate money. One party is getting a lot better at this very quickly. And to be frank, it's the progressive flank of that party, but they're getting better at it nevertheless. Uline business name, not family name, donated 18 million to the GOP, and the GOP transferred 10 mil to Tom Tiffany. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Aaron, if you're on TikTok, I can't take the time to read what you're saying, but if you want to talk about what you're sending me, request to hop on TikTok and I'll throw you on. Aaron, the intern for the OGs on YouTube, are messaging me right now. If you can, but if you're not in a position to, don't worry about it, but I can't really look it over right now. But Jar Manny says Uline funneled 1 million through Young Republicans. I think that's what it was. I mean, yeah, all you guys have different examples of that. And I'm familiar with the family as well. And like I said, I hate all billionaires. So I feel that. Aaron the intern, ladies and gentlemen, via TikTok. Let me turn the volume up here really quick. What did you send me? What's on your mind, Aaron?
I just sent you someone in the comments. People have been talking about the U line and like donations to Tom Tiffany, and I saw this really long post last night that was basically describing like how basically everything that everyone's been saying, and I just sent it to you because it reminded me of what people are talking about. I mean, I could go read off of it, but I feel like
Sure. Sure. Did you why is it a Facebook post? Aaron? Oh, she's teacupping right now. I think she's going to look at it. I don't think she realizes we can't hear her.
okay.
Yeah.
I can't read it obviously at the same time as I'm on here, but what did you say before?
I asked, is it a Facebook post?
No, it was on Instagram. It was basically a bunch of screenshots of different tweets that was like a chain. And they were just talking about how like we're talking about a loophole that Uline donated to the college Republicans, and then the college Republicans donated to Tom Tiffany. And it was kind of talking about like this loophole that is allowed for basically to get extra donations. I don't know.
Okay, I have it up now, and I'm gonna read it off now that you just filled the airtime for me. That's all I really needed. Now that I have it up, I can do it. Always good to hear from you, and thanks for the info. I hadn't seen this, so I'll let everybody know what it says right now. All right, bye. Um, okay, so this is from here I see heresy. Here I see heresy. I like that name. Tom Tiffany is running for governor of Wisconsin. He likes you to think he's a dairy farm boy from Elmwood, a damn tender, a cliche. His ads say so. His biggest backers are Richard and Elizabeth Uline. Heirs to the Schlitz beer fortune, owners of Uline, a packaging empire estimated at $8 billion. In the 2024 election cycle, they threw $130 million at Republicans. They gave Tiffany the maximum individual donation. Then they donated to the College Republicans of Wisconsin. The College Republicans turned around and gave $86K of that to Tiffany's campaign. This is legal. It's designed to bypass caps. The Uline's fund candidates who campaign on border crackdowns. Dick Uline's Restoration PAC ran television ads accusing Democrats of enabling an immigrant invasion. Meanwhile, a Guardian investigation found that their company, Uline, had been shuttling workers in from Mexico on B-1 visas. Tale as old as time, as far as I'm concerned. These visas are intended for temporary training. The workers are assigned to regular warehouse shifts. They're paid less than their American counterparts, which is what we talk about all the time. She's getting off topic, though. The U-Lines also donated $100K to a PAC backing Roy Moore for U.S. Senate. That's the guy from Alabama that I talked about that was signing yearbooks. What's up, AppTap? What are you saying there, Ben? Land back is national security. Absolutely, right on, man. I feel that. They bankrolled the Supreme Court case that gutted public sector unions. They funded campaigns to rewrite child labor laws. They funded campaigns to oppose recreational jazz cabbage. They funded campaigns to oppose susmortion access, same-sex marriage, transgender rights. List goes on and on. Tiffany campaign leaked an internal memo to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. The memo warned Republicans to take Democratic candidate Francesca Hong seriously. It called her the candidate they most feared. Which conservatives are trying to pretend that that was misinformation. I still maintain of the viable candidates for of the five candidates on the ballot for governor, they're very obviously the I think she's the strongest of the five. Not to say she doesn't leave stuff to be desired. Carrie, I see you in the chat. I'm throwing up a link here. I'm going to wait to bring you up until Tanner gets here as well, but welcome to the party. Um, but so I appreciate you for sending me that, Aaron. And exactly, that kind of puts a little bit more of a description on exactly why Citizens United is bad and these super PACs are bad. And again, rules were just passed recently that have removed the limits that individual parties are allowed to contribute now to a candidate. So I think you're going to see the super PACs disappear from the conversation, but instead that money is just going to come directly from the parties then, rather than coming from the Tanner, look 2 posts up. I just threw something in the community chat there. That's the link you have to punch into your browser. Go ahead and do that. I'm waiting on Carrie to use it as well, and I'll bring you guys both up. But so that is the crux of the matter there. And again, I'm not saying that the Democrats are immune to it. And Lord knows I don't like money in politics, but that doesn't change the fact that you can't fight this fight with one hand tied behind your back. Carrie, I see you backstage. We're just waiting on Tanner. You can't fight this fight with one hand tied behind your back. So it's hard for me to begrudge, and I hope they don't. And I believe Francesca Hong and maybe Kelda Royce won't take that corporate PAC money, even though they're clearly running up against it. But it doesn't change the fact that that money is still real. Even though it only is coming from three people, it's still $8 million. And the Democrats are going to need to figure out a way to campaign against, to fight it in this campaign and then put that shit to bed. And I realize that that money going into your campaign is a very appealing part of running for Congress. Tanner, what's up? But it doesn't mean that that's why you get involved. So Democrats need to get that slim trifecta and need to push a Montana plan, a Hawaii plan, a plan to put Citizens United to bed to the forefront of their agenda right away, because clearly the grassroots is not buying into what MAGA is doing right now. And elections are supposed to be grassroots. I got my Soros check coming in the mail. Now, without further ado, I've been kind of teasing this all day. I was at the Appleton Town Hall yesterday. A shit ton of people were at the Appleton Town Hall yesterday. It was a very fun time. A lot of people came out and spoke passionately and in an engaged way about a resolution that was up there, and I'm going to bring some experts on to talk to you guys about what actually happened yesterday and why this fight is still long from over. But you got to celebrate the little victories in life as well. So I'm going to bring you both up now. Nobody be making dumb faces. Here we go. All right. Hello, hello. What's going on, guys? How are you
Morning,
today?
Ben.
Hey, good morning, Ben. Good morning, Carrie.
Morning. This is Tanner and Carrie. They both have been very vocal about their frustration with flock cameras and ALPR technology, automatic license plate reader technology in general. I actually met you guys. It's crazy. It feels like it's barely a month ago, but it feels a lot longer than that. Um, but nevertheless, let's just start with your general reactions to last night. Was that a surprise? I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise based on the feedback from the people that were there, but were you surprised? Did you expect that outcome, or what were your thoughts? Carrie, we'll start with you.
I attended the last public licensing and safety meeting, and there was a relatively low turnout. I expected we would have a better turnout for this council meeting, but I was floored by the participation. I'm so proud of Appleton. The room was packed. There were like 4 rows of chairs totally filled. At least a dozen people had to stand for over 2 hours in the back of the room to be able to participate. I think close to 30 people spoke on the subject. Just unbelievable turnout.
Tanner?
Yeah, I'd echo everything Carrie said. It wasn't exactly a surprise, several of us community members have been sitting down with council members, talking with them, making clear what we want, what other people that we've been talking to want. So we kind of expected the outcome, but it was a very long and hard fought outcome. If anything, I'm surprised that it took this long, but ultimately, yeah, I just was feeling more satisfied than anything that our council finally did the right thing last night.
So let's talk about the right thing. And by the way, I'm in the middle of putting together a professional studio, so I don't have room for it yet. But I do have this right here that I received from Carrie last night, and this will become a regular decoration on Outside the Box Unfiltered. I absolutely love it. But so let's talk about being thrilled about the outcome. So we'll get into the citizen authored ordinance after this. Let's start with what was actually on the floor yesterday and what we were all commenting on, whether it be from a fact-based approach, an emotional or humanitarian, a technical approach. So many people taking this from a different perspective. What was on the floor? And we'll go inverse this time. So Tanner, I'll start with you this time. What was on the floor that ultimately ended up not going through, much to the pleasure of at least the 3 of us and quite a few people in the audience as well?
Yeah, so to be clear, there were 2 flock or ALPR related items on the floor yesterday. One was a confirmation to end the contract early with flock and to cease payment to them for the remaining 2 years of the contract. So Appleton is just straight up not going to pay flock for the remainder of our contract. We have every indication that that is a legal move to do, especially given flock's false and misleading statements and claims to our city leaders. The second item was, a resolution that was supposedly attempting to establish some reporting requirements for a future ALPR system. Maybe it would slightly extend some public input periods for a future system. Ultimately, what was proposed yesterday, there's no specific or durable guardrails that would force future surveillance vendors to make changes or reforms to their product or their procedures. It was a very lightweight resolution that, in my view, was just, I'd say, quite performative.
to give the public a false sense of security and to give APD and future surveillance vendors a very clear and easy path to usher in whichever vendor would come next. And there's been a lot of talk at City Hall about Axon. So it would have cleared the way for them to come back and take Flock's place, and they're basically identical to Flock's product offering.
Yeah, Carrie. It seems as though this was an attempt at a compromise. But what are there specific parts, maybe not mentioned by Tanner, that stuck out to you as kind of like poison pills in what was proposed? Because as we know, and I'll kind of open the door for you to jump into what was proposed in the citizen authored ordinance, which hopefully might get a little bit more daylight here over the next 7 days. But were there certain elements of it that stuck out to you as uniquely bad or foreboding in terms of the future of privacy and surveillance?
Well, I think what we're seeing across the country is that when city councils try to put guardrails in place, and there are only minimal protections like a report that has to be completed, that has to come before council prior to adopting new technology, or audit logs, and an annual review, that can create a sense of security theater for citizens that maybe don't understand how much protection they need from predatory companies that will sell products and lie about their services, violating people's rights. So to me, a couple reports and deferring to police policy isn't good enough. The other thing about deferring to a police policy is that police policy can change. And we want police departments to be able to change their policies in a way, right? So they can stay flexible and adapt to changing needs. But for this policy, we need assurance that we have protections. And that's why we're really trying to fight for ordinance to enshrine some protections against this invasive mass surveillance technology.
Okay, we're speaking with Carrie and Tanner, two anti-ALPR advocates here. So then let's focus in then on the alternate. A handful of people that know a whole hell of a lot more than I do proposed an alternate solution to these problems that addressed some of the issues. I spoke to Appleton alderperson Denise Fenton yesterday about that a little bit. And the parts that she liked and the parts that she thought may have been a little bit pie in the sky here. Maybe Carrie, a little bit on what's included there and how that differs from what was proposed last night.
Sure. There are robust protections for citizens in the citizen-authored ordinance. Some things that I really like. One thing that I would really like to see across the Fox Valley is all of our common councils looking at establishing independent oversight for this technology. We saw in Milwaukee this past week that a detective who was charged with investigating abuse of surveillance technology using Flock for another police officer, he himself now has been charged with abusing that same technology. So citizens are asking for this, an independent body, a commission, a committee, to be able to oversee these audit logs, to oversee this technology, to provide some assurance that it's not being abused. I would like to see different retentions for data, smaller retention periods. So many protections in that citizen authored ordinance could be pulled into the resolutions that are being drafted by Alder Fenton or Alder Van Zeeland or other councils in the Fox Valley too.
Tanner, anything to add to that?
Yeah, in addition to independent oversight, there's a pretty key technical detail that we should not budge on as a city and as residents and as a police department. So one of the main outcomes the citizen authored ordinance calls for is that our city be the only one who can read the data from the ALPR cameras. That would mean they're the sole key holders for the encryption that's used to protect that information. That's not a prescriptive requirement. It's an outcome that's been relevant in cybersecurity forever, and it will continue to be. Currently in systems like Flock holds a copy of those keys that are needed to read their customers' data. And that gives them the ability to turn over that customer data to the federal government and makes that data much more vulnerable to leaks and hacks. And it opens the door to that data being sold in the future if terms and conditions would ever change. So yeah, we're asking that if there's a future system, that we have much stronger local control and restrictive access to that data so that we can't be taken advantage of by these companies.
So the way you're phrasing it there, it sounds like a fairly reasonable ask. And I know you engage in one-on-one discourse, as I'm sure you do as well, Carrie, with different elected officials. Are you getting pushback to that specific idea? Because I'm willing to bet most citizens would probably agree with a lot of what came out of your mouth right there. Why was that not in the original bill? Resolution? Why is that so difficult to achieve in the eyes of our elected officials?
So it's kind of a complicated issue.
Perfect.
So critics of that idea would say, well, that's too restrictive. We don't know of vendors that can offer that right now. Maybe that will serve as a de facto ban on the technology. And my response to that would be, well, I mean, that's like trying to say, I need a car, and it doesn't matter if there's seatbelts or not.
Dude,
Like,
I just thought of the same freaking analogy in my head. Go ahead.
yeah. And so it's like, well, this technology is brand new. And if we need to wait a couple years and we need to work with some vendors to come up with a custom deployment to meet the needs of our community and to prevent misuse and unauthorized data sharing, then that's what we have to do. If we have to just take a short pause, get those systems in place because we know that they're technically possible, so be it. But the city has not sent out requests for information from the various vendors in this space. But what we do know is Flock and Axon, their ALPR technology is not currently built that way. And Ben, I just want to make a small correction. You had referred to me as an anti-ALPR guy.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily identify with that. I'm open to these systems in our communities for our police departments to try out. But if they try them, we need a very comprehensive system of checks and balances so that things don't go wrong. I don't want that kind of drama in my town.
I know. I appreciate the correction. I may have superimposed my own characteristics on you. I apologize.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So I think what's at the heart of this issue, and this is something when I'm speaking to electeds across the Fox Valley, I'm really trying to center this in the dialogue. Our electeds should be centering the needs of the community, our privacy needs, our needs for our data to be stored securely, our needs to feel confident in a product, and we should be scoping those needs and holding third-party vendors up to that standard rather than writing resolutions to accommodate industry standards that may not be up to our standard here locally. That's what I'm really trying to push for when I'm speaking to our elected leaders, that they listen and represent us and center us, put us first on their list of priorities when they're making these moves.
Did yesterday feel like a tone shift to you? Because it felt like a tone shift to me. I was looking at facial expressions. It was a 12-0 vote. You know what I mean? Relative to, I know all three of us were at the last two NINA meetings as well. You guys go to more than these things than I have the time to get to right now. But this one felt different. And I don't know if that's because of the elected representatives of Appleton, or if it's because I think enough people are kind of waking up to this. As my TikTok chat has been popping off, I saw Robin say we're essentially paying to be surveilled. We're not the customers here. It's the government that's the customers. And do you feel like there might be a bit of a shift in the narrative here coming? Not that we're taking our foot off the gas, but just that maybe elected officials realize if you want to keep that job, maybe reflecting the wills of the people on this issue might be the best path forward.
You know, I advocate on a lot of issues across the Fox Valley, Ben, especially here in Oshkosh where I live. I have not seen an issue that has galvanized support from so many different groups. We have, just an illustration, we have socialists and libertarians bonding and forming friendships over their hatred of this technology.
Yeah.
It is beautiful to see. And I think our electeds should be paying attention that the less they listen on this issue, the more people are going to organize around it, and it will impact future elections. I am absolutely sensing a shift, but I feel our work is far from over. We really need to keep our foot on the gas and make sure that our elected leaders see that we are still paying attention. We're not going to lose interest in this topic. This is something we deeply care about, and our privacy affects all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Tanner, do you echo those sentiments, or what are your thoughts on the vibe? You guys have been tracking this longer than, well, at least on the local scene, have been tracking it longer than I have here. So, how are you seeing a kind of sand shift happening, like before our eyes?
Yeah, I would say I am. Um, I would say that the elected officials on our city councils, they're residents of the city too. I think many of them are good people. I see a lot of the good work that they do in the community. I think maybe their time in city government has made them, I guess, a little too heavily dependent on the misguided opinions of police department leadership. And I know our police department also has the best interests of our communities in mind, but they don't know enough about this technology. And council relied on their opinion on this technology far too much. And I think the shift is city leaders are realizing, hey, there's knowledgeable expert voices on this topic throughout our community, and they're not quieting down, they're not going away, and they're growing in numbers. So perhaps we should pay attention. And finally, there's been community advocacy on this topic here in Appleton for 6 months. It started in January. And finally, citizens are getting a forum to talk about this. So just by that alone, yes, I'd say things are shifting a bit.
I saw Ali mentioning in TikTok, and just for some comments here, Lorelei says, "What's the rush?" CKK says, "The police have already proven that they can't be trusted with this tech. How are we supposed to trust far-off cloud-based big tech overlords?" Aaron on TikTok saying, "Anything in Wisconsin takes a long time to happen." These cameras have been around for 2 to 3 years, so it's 6 months. It's kind of one of those things that you don't realize that the storm's coming, and then all of a sudden you can physically see the clouds, and you're like, "Oh no, we need to rally the troops." Here is probably the best way to describe what's going on there. So we've been looking backwards this entire conversation. How about forwards? 6 days from now, we've got another opportunity to get our voices heard, this time about something entirely different. Carrie, why don't you fill the audience in on what's coming up next?
Sure. So this resolution got sent back to committee for discussion and amendments. And this is a really important step for citizens to stay actively engaged. While last night was an opportunity for council to hear the community, and they did for over 2 hours. They listened to many community members weigh in. There was no discussion on this resolution last night. There was a vote to refer it back to committee. So this would be a very great opportunity next week, Wednesday at 5:30 at City Hall, for people to show up again, make their presence known. They can speak at that meeting as well. Participate in the conversation hands-on, but even just your presence in the room listening and showing electeds that you're watching carefully and you're going to continue to care long after that council meeting will go a long way.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised what kind of other things you'd learn about. I didn't even know about the Thrivent TID situation until I went there yesterday. So, like, it's good to be involved in your community. A number of people have been reaching out saying that yesterday was one of their first times doing something like that. So it really does feel like it's galvanizing people in a way that, as someone who does a show like this, it's really nice to see. We're just about out of time to be talking here. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed here in terms of this pushback against this technology, or at least the regulation? Are there ways that people want to get involved outside of going to these events that you guys might have? And Tanner, I'll float that to you first. Is there anything people listening who might want to do something would be able to do?
Yeah, I would say even if you are a shy person that doesn't normally get involved, you think your voice doesn't matter, you're certainly wrong that your voice doesn't matter. You don't have to show up to these and speak if that's outside of your wheelhouse. Just send an email to the council. It really matters. I've heard from multiple city council members that emails to them on this subject really matter. So just send an email. And if that's all you do, you've done your job. You can call, you can leave voicemails. And if you're feeling a little more ambitious, offer to get coffee and sit down with these folks and make your views known to them. Like I said, most of them are good people. They want to do the right thing, but they have to weigh their options. So, yeah, please reach out to the city council. Consider showing up to the next meeting. Your voice truly does matter.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great message to wrap up on. How long did you guys stay at Cleo's last night?
Not long, like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one of those mornings where I never snooze my alarm, and I snoozed my alarm so many times this morning. I was embarrassed. I fell asleep on the couch. My phone was on the floor, and like the people live below me were like, either get up or miss your show. We don't care which, but you gotta pick one or the other. But guys, you have made pushing back or advocating for the appropriate regulation on this tech much easier, and you've helped to inform a lot of people. And shout out to the people in the audience and how who showed up at the event yesterday, as did OG Michelle, and I'm sure a handful of others that are in this chat right now that I don't see. I appreciate you guys coming on, and this that we'll still be in touch, and we'll keep rolling here, and I'll probably see you guys in 6 days.
Sounds great, Ben. Thanks for having
Bud.
us.
Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. I'm going to get rid of you now. Thanks for being here. Bye. Oops. There we go. What did House say there? The council voted to approve the money for Thriving. Hmm. Well, I guess we can all win. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Yeah, as Jarmani says, 2 wins is good, I guess. But sure, let's keep sending our tax dollars to help the wealthy. Well, I mean, if we don't, Jarmani, who will? What do we expect them to do? Eat regular toast instead of avocado toast? Get the hell out of here. But the reason Jarmani says 2 wins instead of 3 is that they Appleton is also rolling back, and OG Michelle spoke out about the truancy ordinance in Appleton, something that a lot of you, yeah, thank you for being here, Emmy. Thank you to you for speaking out as well. For those of you, because I only aired my show on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok from 9 to 11 when I was on the radio, but there was a local half hour that I did every day from 8:30 to 9 Central Time. And truancy was one of the main things that we talked about. And like, I'll be real. And I realized that my experience is not necessarily relevant to other people's experience. I always had a knack for schooling. I enjoyed reading, but I really hated going to school. And like there were whole semesters where I don't know that I went on a Monday. And like it's not like I skipped. I would just tell my parents, I'm like, I don't think it's happening today. And like there'd be weeks at a time where I just would take 3-day weekends. We really should have a 4-day work week. I still got the grades. I still turned out fine-ish. And the idea that there would have been threats or ticketing because of what I was doing and not showing up enough, I think is a gross way to handle things, especially as I've highlighted before, when the financial penalty is not a percentage. When it's a flat financial fee, now you're telling me that wealthy people's kids can be truant, but poor people's kids better be showing up. Otherwise, they're really going to feel it in their wallet. And it's like, there's probably a better way. And a ton of people showed up with facts and stats and showing how Appleton's truancy rate was trending relative to other school districts' truancy rates, talking about whether or not the tickets are actually showing some kind of positive change, or more importantly, whether or not that positive change was already happening. But I don't know. It was absolutely fantastic to see happen. It was fantastic to meet Michelle in real life, and the truancy thing happening or getting rolled back was another W. Unfortunately, the thriving thing is not going our way right now, but I don't know if you've ever met America, but in America, the billionaire companies win more often than not. But it doesn't mean we stop. It means we get louder. Or we nominate the people who aren't going to push that kind of stuff through. This is my point. I have to love the clarification. He's like, just for the record, I'm not anti-flock, which I respect and I appreciate him saying that. And I was like, oh, well, I most certainly am. And I was just describing my own feelings onto you. I'm going to check for Facebook messages here really quickly. Bear with me. Let's see here. We got a couple. Carrie said, I still have goosebumps from last night. What an incredible display of democracy in action. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Brian says, how about we don't use mass surveillance of any kind to begin with versus having checks and balances? Do we really want any of that tech? I would argue no, Brian. I would argue we don't want that tech, even if it is regulated. That's my attitude. Because eventually, all it means is if you put it up and regulate it, it just means we're one bad cycle away from having those regulations removed. We're one bad cycle and one because you can scare a certain demographic of people. I'm not going to say which. Boomers. Um, into agreeing to more surveillance based on the threat of crime. The crimes are everywhere, and we'd be one bad cycle away, in my opinion, from that ever happening. So I'd prefer they just never go up. We keep doing things the regular way. And as I said yesterday, the idea that this makes police officers' jobs easier, please really understand that it's not going to make their jobs easier. It's going to make it so that we need less of them. And some of you are like, oh, good, less cops. I don't mean it that way. I mean, we'll actually be more under the thumb of authority, but with less people and more people on the unemployment line. Angelo or Ange 1970 says, insert Ben Franklin quote here. You know what's funny is in my speech or my comment that I gave yesterday about flock cameras, I said, I could come up here and quote Benjamin Franklin or I could quote Russ Feingold, and you guys already know the quotes, and I wouldn't move the needle an inch. And so I did my entire comment from an emotional perspective because Tanner is a fucking machine with here's the ba 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 ba, and Carly's the same way. And there's about a half a dozen to a dozen other people that had so many facts, tidbits, anecdotes, all lined up and in an organized way that I was like, I approached it the way I approach everything. I do it like Jay-Z. I have my ideas in my head, and then I get in front of the microphone, and I'm like, I know how I want to do this, and then I do it. And I went for the emotional appeal. And I mentioned Ben Franklin and I mentioned Russ Feingold. And then I said, but I'm not going to quote them to you. I said, instead, I'm just going to ask you guys, most of human existence didn't have these cameras and we got along just fine. I'm not saying that we don't ever have to have the cameras. I'm saying, why do we have to have them tomorrow? Like, if this many people are willing to show up on just a Wednesday night, it's a school night. People got jobs, they got events, they got stuff to do. There were so many people there yesterday. If this many people are saying, here's all the concerns I have, even if some of their concerns are unfounded in your opinion. Yes, I did compare myself to Jay-Z. Why is there a rush? Why are we in such a speedy mentality towards getting these up? Why not pump the brakes and put everybody's mind at ease? Honestly, I wish I had said it, but Flock is almost the technology version of ICE. Because I live in an apartment complex that prior to Trump's administration was more than 50% Hispanic occupied. And we had a blast. I was never walking back to my apartment and being like, oh no, I got to walk past that group of people. That was not a thing that happened. You know when I would think that? If I had to walk past a bunch of masked government agents with weapons on their holsters that seemed to be pretty angry, and if you pronounce my name Cominos instead of Cominos, I all of a sudden am a big problem to them. Flock cameras are the same way. I don't walk around worried about crime. I see you, Malia. I'm sending the link through the chat now. I don't walk around worried about crime. I walk around worried about the idea of being surveilled for my political beliefs, for the type of protests that I show up to, for the kind of work that I do, whatever the situation is, that is much more so a threat to me than anything of the crime that we deal with in the Fox Valley. The Jay-Z comparison was an appropriate comparison. When he writes his raps, has a bunch of ideas in his head, but he waits. What's going on here? Why is this happening? Malia, bear with me 1 second. My vice on my mic just kind of popped there. Give me 1 second here. Okay, you know what? We're going to go with computer audio the rest of the way.